Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. As you may have guessed, Andrea is not able to be here tonight, hence why I am speaking. So I will be chairing the meeting. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order at 7:03 here. Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hope you're staying cool. We're going to start off, as always, with our call to order and our Native American land acknowledgement. So today, I would like to acknowledge the people whose land we are gathered on. Present-day Portland is located on the traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia and Willamette rivers. Let us also acknowledge the robust Native community made up of tribal diversity that originates around the country and whose journeys have brought them to Portland by ways of forced displacement or seeking opportunities. Today, these same communities celebrate their heritage, showing resilience and tenacity that would be greatly admired by their ancestors. And with that, we are going to go ahead and go to our financial report. And I'm going to pass it on to Pat.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. So I wanted to give you some updates, starting with a state update. There was a revenue forecast since the last time we met, and the state forecast was surprisingly good, and I think it shocked pretty much everybody. It is at pre-pandemic, higher than pre-pandemic forecasts. I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of stimulus money that has been pushed into the economy. So their general fund revenue was $1 billion. The corporate activity tax is projected to be $74 million more than the last projection. I did want to bring your attention that the state school fund was passed at 9.3. And since I've sent this to you, the governor has vetoed a line item for the extra $200 million. And my understanding is the legislature will be putting that back in. There are some concerns at the state level about maintenance of effort requirement. One of the things that I did want to bring to your attention is that if you'll notice that the allocation, even though at 9.3 would be higher than the last biennium, the actual amount of funding that would be allocated for next year is less than what would be allocated for this year. And so we're not that hopeful that we'll get above 9.3. We're hoping that it'll stay at the 9.3 billion. Some caveats with that. So down below in the memo is a table that shows the state ADMW, and you can see from about 2016-17 up until about a year ago, the state ADMW was decreasing. This year, you see a huge increase from 704,000 in 1920 to 709,000 in 2021. And what's a little bit concerning is the state has projected the ADMW for next year at 703,000. So all of the school districts' allocations are based on a lower ADMW number. Now, how that can impact us is you can see in the calculation that there's a potential of $75 per ADMW loss, just because the pie doesn't get bigger when there's more ADMW, the slices get smaller. So one of the things that I did update was a table that you've seen a couple times over this past year of our enrollment over the last number of years. I did add another projection year in for 22-23. I did also update the 2021 ADMW to 11,717. It was 11,728, so it's down just slightly. But as you can see that our ADMW from year to year, we've had larger and larger declines. We're losing those extra weightings, along with, you'll see those enrollment numbers are still projected to decline. So things that will impact us for the future. So we are just hopefully settling 2 of our employee bargaining group contracts. So that'll help us with knowing exactly for a year or 2 at least what our projected expenditures will be. That can have an impact on our budget. And so going into our financial report, so in the general fund, you'll recall that we initially projected 18.5 in our proposed budget for next year. And I did talk about, we don't anticipate that with the school start coming back. We had some expenditures and we would be down $1 million to $1.5 million. Right now, it looks like somewhere between 17.3 and 17.5. I don't expect it to creep up to 18.5 at this time. The technology fund, so we have a projected ending fund balance at 149,000. That is based on whether we get the City of Portland pass-through. And we also are still waiting for an E-rate payment that has been delayed, and we're kind of unsure what's going on there. It might be a little bit COVID related, just because folks are telecommuting and things might not be flowing quite as easily. So that may be something that doesn't actually show up until next year. I'll keep you posted on that. Nutrition services fund. So again, the ending fund balance has decreased, meaning that it's actually got a larger deficit. We just are having fewer meals served than we had anticipated. We do anticipate using ISR funding to assist with that deficit, and we'll clear that, or at least most of it, by the end of this year. So I just wanted to highlight, they have tried a few new dishes this year and that have received mixed reviews. For those of you who might be taking meals or are familiar, there are some polls that folks can take. And so as we try out new things, they can go out and you can actually log in and see the results. The vegan chili, although I hear it was very tasty, I don't think people have received it very well. But surprisingly, the nacho fish nuggets were a hit. So I'm not sure, because most of the time fish nuggets are not a thing that folks are going, yeah, I want that. So we do plan on doing more outreach in the fall to get more student input, and we will continue to test out new recipes and increase our cultural options. And we'll also probably be doing some family engagement items. So Transportation Replacement Fund, again, that ending balance is up, and we talked about that last month with the bus delivery that we actually had to return. And so we most likely will need to do a supplemental budget next year after we adopt the budget, just to make up for that. And I think that is about it. There's not anything. The reprographics and postal fund, the expenditures and revenues have declined. Obviously, we're not printing as much as students haven't been in school. So we've left that budget the same for next year, and we'll see how our printing goes as we get back into school and into the swing of things. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Great. Thank you so much, Pat. Before we go on, I just wanted to mention we did have public commentary on the agenda. No one has signed up. And so we are going to the next item on the agenda, which was me closing out our meeting for a brief recess for us to conduct a public hearing on the budget. So with that, we're going to go into our public hearing, and I'm going to pass it back to Pat.
So good evening. So we are providing an opportunity for public testimony on the approved budget that the Budget Committee passed about a month ago. And Lori, were there any folks that had any comments?
No, Pat, no one signed up.
Okay. So evidently we can close the hearing.
Okay, and with that, I am closing our public hearing and our brief recess, and we're going back into our meeting. Going to our next agenda item, which is a resolution to adopting the budget, making appropriations, and levying taxes for the fiscal year 2021-22. This is an action item, as well as our a memo that modifies the budget. Back to Pat.
So yes, I did want to talk about the memo that was accompanying the resolution. As you'll see, that resolution does not exactly match what the Budget Committee approved. And as the board was apprised, there was an error in the revenue calculation. So there's three things that are impacting the budget. One is that ending fund balance decline, so I wanted to get that captured. Two is the revenue calculation error, and so that is included. And then as I was going back through and trying to update everything with all of the changes and modifications and different bargaining things that we have settled and agreed upon, I did notice that I had made a projection for a May adjustment for next year. So I did dial that back also. So you're going to see that to be about a $7 million adjustment in the general fund. And that would be a reduction. You will notice that there is a increase to the grants fund. So we're going to pick up some of those items through ESSER funding, including the curriculum, the new buses, and then there was some additional activity for nutrition services and community activities and grants that we added. So you'll see that the grants fund appropriation has increased, the general fund appropriations that we have for next year decreased, and the net difference is about 2.9 million in the overall budget for all funds.
Stephanie, you have your hand. Go ahead.
I apologize. I'm not sure which document this was where I saw it, but was there any reduction in force with the $7 million? I think I remembered like 1.5 FTE in counseling somewhere, or am I missing?
Correct. So there's not actually a reduction in force. So that's going over in, actually that it was double budgeted because we weren't sure how much SIA funding we were getting. With the corporate activity tax being up, I'm pretty confident that that's going to be there. So in essence, we're going to eliminate that. We did have the equity, diversity and inclusion administrator. That also was a double budgeted item because we were unclear if we were going to get the grant. We still don't know at this time, but every indication is positive. And so if that for some reason does not come to fruition, we have a couple options with ESSER, or we can come back and figure out either a contingency transfer or look at salary savings and bring it back into the general fund.
So to be clear, there's no loss of counseling staff that we originally put in the budget. Okay, that would be my only concern, given the upcoming year and how much support kiddos are going to need, social, emotional, and elsewhere. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, so this is an action item that we need to adopt. Would anyone like to go ahead and make the motion?
I'll go ahead and move that we approve the resolution adopting budget, making appropriations and levying taxes for the fiscal year 2021.
Second.
21-22.
Sorry about that, Pat. Yeah, 21-22.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna make the roll call. Stevens,
Aye.
Maranovich, aye. Barber,
Aye.
Barrow,
Aye.
Christopher,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Lovely. And with that, we have adopted that budget. Thank you, Pat. Thank you all. And going further on to our invited public input, we have some students here with us for our Pride Month proclamation, providing input for that. So I'm inviting Eliana Smith, Callum Hatlin, and Kaya McKinnon. Apologies if I am mispronouncing, please correct me. Derek, if we can get them in. Hi, welcome folks, and feel free whenever you're ready to unmute and go ahead. I see Eliana, so welcome folks.
Hi. Caleb says he's actually coming home from a graduation thing, so he might be a bit late. I just texted him. So I guess I'll start. My name is Eliana Smith. I am going to be a sophomore next year at David Douglas. And things I was involved in at school was Pride Club, book club, and the lunch chats thing, and then tennis as a sport. I was homeschooled until 7th grade and went to Ron Russell Middle School 7th and 8th grade, and then just finished my freshman year at David Douglas High School. Now, the next prompt thing is that, so I think it's important to recognize Pride Month like as a whole so that it's not seen for less than what it is, because I think it's important, but I don't think people, I think they know it exists, but it's not like a big thing because it's still sometimes things people don't like talking about. And it should be acknowledged because for some people, it's kind of part of who they are, like, and it's kind of like disregarding someone's ethnicity or race. And in that sense, I think it's, when it comes to pride, that's also very much part of who someone is, for one aspect. Like, it's not themselves entirely, but it is part of them. And it's also kind of one of those things that, you can't always choose that, like for just like being a human being, you can't always choose, like your faith or whatever it is. Like, you might be set into something because of your family. Like, you can't always choose that. Same with your sexuality or your gender identity. So I think that that's really important. And then my first experience, just getting through this at school, is that, I think it's been, pretty smooth because all my friends who I've come out to and stuff, it's always been like, I tell them, they're like, okay, cool. And then we move on. And I feel like that's important because, it's not the kind of thing like, like you introduce yourself to someone and they're like, okay, nice to meet you, and on we go. Like, saying who you are shouldn't be that kind of like big thing where you get exploded with all these questions. And it should become kind of like a norm, I feel like, for people in pride to just say who they are and then like it's over, like you're good. So yeah, I like it. I don't mind when people have questions, but I also really don't mind when people are like, okay, cool, we'll just roll with it and then we're done. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Eliana. Now, did you say Callum or Kaya is running late? Are both? Oh, Callum is.
I'm not sure. I didn't reread the email about who's attending. I don't know if Kaya is. I didn't exactly reread that bit.
Derek, do we have Kaya in the waiting?
We do not.
Okay.
We do not.
Well, sounds great. Eliana, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for being here. I love that. We should all accept each other as is and just move on. So thank you so much. And with that, we are going to go ahead to our Pride Month proclamation, which I am excited to read. All right. Derek, I'm not sure if you're pulling it up. I do have it on my end. I can go ahead, but great. All right. Our Pride Month proclamation. Whereas Pride Month celebrations include people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, two-spirit, pansexual, asexual, gender fluid, non-binary, intersex, and allies. And whereas the New York City Police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay club located in Greenwich Village in New York City, and sparked a riot led by Black and brown trans activists, leading to 6 days of protests and violent clashes with law enforcement, known as the Stonewall Riots, which later served as a catalyst for the gay rights movement in the United States and around the world. And whereas Portland has a rich history of LGBTQ community leaders, including activist and founder of Portland's first Pride Month, Kathleen Sadat, judge and Asian Pacific Islander Pride co-founder Lynn Nakamoto, founding board member of Portland's Q Center and PDX Latinx Pride, David Martinez, and founder of the Portland Two-Spirit Society, Amanda Brings Plenty Wright, among countless others. And whereas we must acknowledge that the LGBTQ community has faced and continues to face systematic discrimination, including restricted rights, social stigma, challenges, accessing healthcare, and other basic social services, and startling rates of violence. And whereas, according to a recent David Douglas School District student survey, 4% of middle school students and 4% of high school students reported that they identify outside of the gender binary. And there are an estimated 150,000 transgender youth nationwide between the ages of 13 and 17. However, more than half of all trans and gender expansive youth reported they had no access to a school restroom that matched their gender identity, and only 1 in 3 were always called their true name while at school. And whereas, according to a recent David Douglas School District student survey, 36% of middle school students and 29% of high school students do not identify as straight. Despite the size of these groups, lesbian, gay, and bisexual, pansexual, and other queer students at our high schools and middle schools were twice as likely to report having been bullied in the past year. And gay or lesbian high school students in particular reported twice as much physical bullying as other students. And whereas, according to a recent district student survey, of the students that reported being bullied, 20% of middle school students and 25% of high school students reported being bullied and harassed because of their gender, and 39% of middle school students and 32% of high school students reported being bullied and harassed because people think I'm gay, whether I am or not. And whereas schools in our district run groups that support the social and emotional needs of our LGBTQ students, including pride clubs at our high school and middle schools, these clubs work to promote LGBTQ inclusion in schools, such as gender-neutral bathrooms. And now, therefore, I, Sahar Maranovich, Vice Chair of the David Douglas School Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim June 1st through June 30th, 2021, to be LGBTQ+ Pride Month in the David Douglas School District. Be it further resolved that the David Douglas School Board of Directors strongly encourages our staff and community to observe, recognize, and celebrate the contributions of LGBTQ+ people in our country, our state, our cities, and our schools. Thank you. Happy Pride, everyone. And thank you again, Eliana, for your testimony. Derek, if at any point any of the other students show up, if they wish to come, just let me know.
We do have one student.
Oh, awesome. Great.
I'm sending Caleb over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, Caleb. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Hi. Whenever you're ready, we would love to hear from you.
Okay, so hi, my name is Callum Hatlin. I just graduated. So thank you. I'm about to be a freshman in college. And I was involved in my community my junior and senior year. I was in stagecraft. And when I first was a freshman, I was also in the Pride Club for a little bit, but eventually I had other things that I had to do. And I think it's important to have Pride Month at our school because I grew up in a household where when I came out as trans and gay, my dad made it seem like I was the only person going through this. And sorry if my cats are climbing on me. He made it seem like it was wrong for me to, express myself like that or to express myself as masculine. And for a while, I never felt like, I had a place to fit in. But when I went to high school, I had seen the Pride Club and I was able to connect and engage with other students who were, in similar situations, or, they had the exact opposite where they had, extremely, accepting families. And it was nice, to not feel like I was by myself and, to feel like, I wasn't wrong for, wanting to be male and, wanting to be with the people who I love. And I think it's really important to continue to do that, especially for, all the kids who are coming in who have similar situations to mine. And yeah.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Callum, and congratulations on graduating.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And absolutely agree. Yes. All right, folks. And with that, well, it's hard to go and follow that up, but we're ratifying our collective bargaining agreement between the district and DDEA. And this is also an action item. Candy, did you want to say something about this, or are we just going straight into it?
Well, I would love to if I could. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. You're right. That is hard to follow, especially with this. But I will say, and thank you for the time. I will say I am really excited to announce that after 3 months of bargaining with our DDEA, we have reached a tentative agreement on a 3-year agreement with them. And speaking of the 3 months, it comes with a lot of time and a lot of work. And so I have several people I would love to thank. First off, I want to thank our board members who participated in the process. Sahar Maranovic, Andrea Valderrama, and Christine Larson. Thank you so much for your time. We just appreciate your commitment to the process, and it's a lot, and we know. I also want to thank our Superintendent Richardson, also Pat Komar, and then our HR manager, Darcy Powers. Those are the folks that are helping with all the behind the scenes work, from costing things out to just general preparation around language and just discussions. Without that team, we couldn't do it. And then lastly, I'd like to thank our DDA team. They've been very collaborative throughout the process. We always appreciate that. We just appreciate the continued partnership around problem solving and just having some honest discussions, and that has been really nice. I will say that the members, because it has just been tentatively agreed on, the members have not finished voting. They will finish voting tomorrow, I believe, at noon. So we will look forward to that. And I I do believe that Julie Talley was able to log on here. We're running really early, which is great, but we almost missed you, Julie. So Derek, I think if you could bring her over, I know she would like to say a few words. So thank you so much.
Julie Talley should be able to speak.
All right, there she is. Hi, Julie.
Sorry, I was out mowing. The Northwest Natural guys here, I apologize, you guys. Our gas is off. We're having quite a fandango in our neighborhood. So I just stopped and saw your text, so here we are.
Thank you, Julie.
So, right now, it looks like we're having our voting for the ratification is going very favorably. We've got about a 95% vote yes for ratification. So again, we're going to take that through noon tomorrow. And then we'll have the results by 12:30. And then, you know, I know both sides were very thankful that we were able to reach this agreement. And I think we all know we have a little more work to do in the fall, but we're looking forward to summer and getting some rest and get re-energized. And we'll be back to finish our work in the fall. So thanks. And I think that's all we have for right now. So.
All right. Thank you so much. And just, that's a huge, huge celebration for all of us. Very exciting. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Sahar, for any questions and or for the board's consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Candy. Thank you so much, Julie. Are there any questions or comments before we go ahead? Yes, Stephanie, go ahead.
I just want to say how pleased I am that this contract came to fruition through the hard work. I think I want to highlight the MOU codifying some of our racial justice work together, which I think is really says a lot about this district and its educators and licensed staff and its administration and board. So congratulations on the contract. I also want to thank you for being here this year, and what a year it was. I hope you have a well-deserved rest this summer.
Sahar, so if you don't mind, I promise less than 30 seconds, but Candy just spent some time thanking a lot of people, which is well deserved. But it's, you know, we'd be doing a disservice here if we didn't thank Candy as well for her leadership in this process, her voice, always keeping staff in mind, heart and mind, and really just leading us through it. So thank you, Candy, for your work through this entire process. And I think both these contracts are a reflection of your passion and leadership in this district.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you all for your work. It's you all have done a tremendous job. Okay, so would anyone like to make the motion here?
Move to approve the tentative agreement, actually to ratify the contract for licensed staff.
Anyone wish to second?
I'll second.
Great. Larson seconds. Great. Any comments? And with that, Barber.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Maranovich. Aye. Christopher.
Aye.
Barrow.
Aye.
And Larson.
Aye.
That was everyone, right? And with that, we have ratified our collective bargaining agreement with DDEA. This is very exciting. Yay. Thank you all so much for your work. And continuing with that excitement, we're going to ratify collective bargaining between the district and OSEA Chapter 40.
All right. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's me again. And you can see why I have a lot of smiles this evening, because I have two very exciting things to share. And that is also now our classified agreement. So that one was a little bit less time or quicker. We settled that or got to a tentative agreement just this afternoon after about close to 3 weeks of bargaining. And we reached a 4-year contract with this group with a reopener of financials and 2 articles in 2 years. So again, some thank yous to our board members who participated. Sahar, you did double duty, so thank you. You were attending both groups, and also want to thank on this one Frida Christopher and then Aaron Barrow. Really appreciate your time, commitment. It's a lot, and it just means so much to both sides, to the district and to our classified union. And then, of course, I would like to thank our OSEA team. Appreciate always the collaborative, reasonable approach, the honest discussions, and your care for our district. It's just always a pleasure. And again, we just settled today, so they haven't voted, but I know on our call with us this evening is Darla Black, and I just saw her join us. And Darla, I'm wondering if you'd like to say a few words. Darla is the OSEA president. And you are on mute, Darla. I see your mouth, but I don't hear anything. It's okay.
Sorry about that. I usually Google, not Zoom. I want to thank everyone also, the 3 board members that participated, Ken, Candy, Darcy, Pat, and we really appreciate your time that you spend with us negotiating. It was fast and furious. This morning I was juggling phone calls and getting report cards printed for teachers. So it was a busy, busy morning for us, but we were very pleased to be able to come to an agreement that we feel will benefit our classified employees. And we hope to be able to ratify by next Wednesday. That's our goal. So we haven't even been able to share details yet at this point. We're hoping to do that tomorrow with them. And then early next week, start our voting process. So the 3 board members, again, that participated, thank you for your time. We appreciate you giving us that much attention. And again, we were just really happy to be able to come to a decision this morning, agreement this morning. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Darla, and your entire team. Thank you again, Candy, Ken, Pat, everyone involved. Ken, did you want to say something? Are you good?
I already said it. Obviously, recognizing, I know I cannot say it better than Candy. Thank everyone involved. Thank Darla and her team, and then specifically Candy as well for her leadership through the entire process. So thank you again.
Indeed. All right. Oh, I see an unmuting. Who would like to bring the motion?
Thanks, because I am so happy that again we have this great contract. I know they're gonna love it. And just everything that you classified staff have done to support the district this year. I mean, it's been a year like no other, and from meals to I couldn't even name all the different ways that our classified staff supported our district. And so thank you very much. We hope you feel supported by this contract. And I would love to move ratification of the contract for our classified employees.
Thank you so much, Stevens.
I'll second.
Nope. Gonna say Larson on that one. Great. And with that, yes.
So Hart, can I say just a couple words since I did serve on this? I have to admit, before COVID hit, I thought I'd never have to bargain again. And it just so happened I did this time. I really felt this went so smoothly and quickly. And so I really appreciate the OSEA's bargaining group and making that happen, because they tend to be very reasonable all the time. I should note for the other board members, we are somewhat unique. Many school districts, board members aren't involved in negotiations. And so, but I know the bargaining units, their teams really appreciate that our board over the years has always participated. So I think you need to know that that's something that it's a lot of work, but it's well appreciated by the other group, by the groups. So anyway, just wanted to make those few comments.
Thank you so much, Rita. Yes, it's been a tremendous team effort. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna take a roll call. Stevens.
Aye.
Maranovich, aye. Barber,
Aye.
Christopher,
Aye.
Barrow,
Aye.
and Larson.
Aye.
And with that, we got another ratification done with our classified. Thank you again, everyone. Amazing work. End of the school year. We did it. And with that, we're going to go ahead and go on to our consent agenda. We got a few items here that we'll approve together. Would anyone like to bring the motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Stephen.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, could you clarify where there are resolutions to select workers' comp insurance or accident insurance? Are we voting that it's okay to select them, or that they have been selected and we're approving that? I'm not sure which is the case.
I believe it's approval of the selections we've made, correct, Pat?
I have too many on buttons. Let me look here. So you are approving the selection and dollar amount of the insurance and workers' compensation carriers for next year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Did we have a motion on Stevens? You just did,
I
right?
did, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second it.
Great. Thank you. And with that, Maranovich, aye. Stevens,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Christopher,
Aye.
Barrow,
Aye.
and Larson.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. With that, we have our consent agenda. And next up, we have a presentation, a racial equity plan presentation from the Racial Equity Committee. And we have a few presenters here. Ms. Tay Spears, Francesca Altman, John Archer, Dina Henry, Andy and Kelly are here already. So if we can get the other folks in, and I believe there is a slide deck. And whenever everyone is in, feel free to go ahead and get started.
Good evening, everyone. Derek, if you could pull up our equity plan slide, that would be, we would be grateful. And I am going to launch us tonight. I believe we've been trying to text Miss Tay, but know that since today is the last day of school and Alisat was celebrating 8th grade parade, and we anticipate that she is spending some time with our Alisat families because we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So we, as true educators, know how to modify and adjust, and we're going to continue on with our presentation this evening. So next slide, please, Derek. So just a little bit of background information and reminder to our school board. You tasked us with a school board racial equity committee approximately 3 to 4 years ago. And we began with some conversations, getting to know each other. I see Stephanie shaking her head. She was one of our founding members back then. And we really had our work cut out for us. And where we are today is we've passed a school board racial equity plan or policy in January of 2020. And the policy tasked us with developing and creating a district equity plan. And then the pandemic hit. And I would like to lift up our entire committee that even through a global pandemic, we were able to meet virtually and include the voices that the board tasked us to honor and elevate and connect with and engage. Those are our parents, our teachers, our community members, different employee groups, our administration team, and our school board leadership team. Based off of that, we have the following commitments. So next slide. As you will all see in the draft plan that you received, we have 4 commitments. Student achievement is 1, student discipline is 2, systems accountability is 3, and workplace policies in 4. And those were articulated and communicated in our original racial equity policy. Based on our collective input, tonight we will be presenting from different team members on each of these committee work groups our recommendations to the board for our action steps. And so with that, I turn over my platform right now to our team commitment team 1 representative, Francesca Altman from Gilbert Heights. Francesca, you're up.
Okay, so I could probably talk about this for 2 hours, but Kel has been very clear that I have about 3 minutes. So I'm just going to share some highlights with you about this really exciting work. So as Kelly mentioned, our first commitment was related to student achievement. And this commitment was really about narrowing the gaps between our highest and lowest achieving students by increasing opportunity and focusing on raising the achievement of our lowest performing students. So if you're able to switch the slide, Derek, just to give you kind of a few of the focus areas, one of the themes you'll see in this conversation is that all 4 of these commitments were huge. And so I think every group, when we sat down to work on this, said, oh my goodness, our area is so big, our area is so big. And so, I mean, there's a lot covered here. So these are just a few of the key areas that we focused on. So the first was really about seeking out and implementing culturally sustaining curriculum, as well as our teaching and learning practices. And as it says here, reflecting and understanding the appreciation of cultural, class, language, ethnicity, and other differences that contribute to the uniqueness of each student and staff member. So a huge focus of our area of our category was really about how curriculum is selected, how we supplement that curriculum, where the accountability is for teaching and learning practices that are used, et cetera. At that point, then our next item that we looked at was being able to collaborate between teachers and administrators. So we talked a lot about how can we have all voices at the table to be able to make these decisions, but then also how do we build in that accountability? And really, we believed that that came through partnership between the administrators and teachers together, sitting at the same table and looking through how do we establish these practices? How do we hold accountability for those practices? And then one final category was how do we look at success in multiple different ways? And historically, success, especially in a K-12 school system, has had kind of a linear pathway. And so we looked at how can we ensure that there's multiple pathways available for our students, not saying that we lower the bar. And we were very clear about maintaining a high bar and expectation for achievement, but how do we increase the number of pathways to be able to do that? And how can we ensure that that has the ability to look different for each student depending on their need? And then Derek, if you can go ahead and advance that slide. So several of these items that we were looking at, we had to evaluate how can we even determine whether or not these things are happening. And so we looked at some different key performance indicators that we would hope would be in place to ensure that this happens. So the first one is to be able to create and implement professional learning that is focused on anti-racist and anti-biased lens for everyone who's in charge of adopting a curriculum. And we're actually already in the process of implementing that with our ELA adoption for next year. Every single person on on that adoption committee will participate in anti-racist and anti-bias training as a part of every single session when they meet this year. And that training is being designed by staff of color in our district, which is really exciting. We also looked at how can we establish review cycles for things like curriculum materials that do need to be supplemented. We know that we are never going to find a curriculum that checks every single box of what we're looking for. So how can we look at intentionally supplementing that curriculum with materials that are meaningful for our students? And also, how can we evaluate the assessments that we use and determine if those are meeting our needs, or why, what is the reasoning behind those, et cetera. We are looking strongly at how do we design and implement professional learning that is meaningful and that has multiple entry points for staff depending on their starting place, but also that we're not implementing one and done trainings, but that professional development comes in cycles that come with assessing need and delivering training and circling back and continuing to build that cycle. As I mentioned before, we're looking at how can we look at differentiated pathways to graduation. Also, we talked about how can we ensure different opportunities for students and opportunities regarding advanced placement courses, extracurricular activities, things like that. And then finally, probably our biggest key performance indicator is that we should see a decrease in the disproportionate data as far as graduation rate and student achievement goes. I think our ultimate goal, and the ultimate goal of probably this whole committee, is that we cannot predict student achievement based on any of the factors that we are currently able to. So that was kind of our big focus for student achievement. I know you all have a copy of the full plan, and I encourage you to kind of dig through there a little bit more because there's some really amazing work from our team in there. So I'm really excited to share that. And just really quickly, our team was made up of myself, Brooke O'Neill, Atima Banks, and Kyle Riggs. So all of them deserve just as much credit for sharing as I have. So that is all I have to share. And then I believe number 2, Kelly, was I handing off to Tay, and I'm not sure if she's made it on, so.
No, you're handing off to John and Dina.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Awesome. Thanks, Francesca. So my name is John Archer, and I was able to serve on the commitment team that looked at student discipline alongside Dina Henry, who's here with me tonight, as well as Tay Spears, Florence Protopappas, Rolando Flores, and Mary Pearson. And on the screen here, you can see the commitment that our school district commits to eliminate racial disparities and disproportionality in all aspects of the educational administrative systems. And so examples there focused on what we were looking at include the disproportionality and discipline of students of color, their over-representation in special education programs, and their under-representation in various advanced learning programs. And then on the next slide, Dina is going to share there, and then I'll be back.
So our targeted focus area here is, and our goal really was to figure out how to eliminate disciplinary practices that disproportionately impact particular student groups, focusing on replacing skewed discipline models like our matrix with district-wide standardized restorative growth practices, which is something that we're currently in the process of right now. Our middle schools, all 3 of our middle schools went through restorative practices training in the fall, and we've had I believe one school that has sent an entire team of students, an entire team of teachers to Texas to get trained by the trainers. And then we have more teams going this summer. In fact, this next week, they'll be going down to Texas to become trained by the trainers in restorative practices.
And so, as Dina mentioned, there are some key indicators that we want to achieve to make this happen. So the key performance indicators here, the first one is completing all the components that are written into the School Climate Transformation Grant. We received that as a district in 2020, and it's a 5-year grant that's $2.4 million. It looks at multi-tiered systems of support, which in our district is mostly our PBIS programs. And then, as Dina mentioned, working on restorative practices. And the grant plan includes training for every member of our staff, from classified all the way up to administrators over the course of those 5 years. The second bullet point point there in our key performance indicators is consistent student discipline data review by our district's administrators and different school leadership teams. And when we talked about that, it's looking at all sorts of different subgroup categories to find any levels of disparity or over or underrepresentation. So race, ethnicity, sex, gender, age, recidivism, efficacy. And then, as Dina mentioned, rethinking some of the things our district has used, like the matrices, the elementary and secondary matrix for discipline, and looking more at what some of our multi-tiered systems of support and restorative practices would suggest. So implementing those types of things, such as culturally responsive teaching practices, trauma-informed practices, restorative practices, should then lead to a decrease that's progressive over time in exclusionary practices, in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions, so that students are with their teacher, with their peers, learning in the classroom. Specifically, we see disproportionality for that with our Black and Brown students, and we would aim through the roadmap in this equity plan to change that over time. And the next up will be Andy Long sharing about the third commitment work, systems accountability.
Thanks, John. And good evening to everyone. And what a great night in David Douglas. So many positive things that we've heard about in our meeting, and for our staff and for our students. So this is really exciting, and it continues now. We talk about accountability. And as you know, none of the great work that Francesca and John and Dina have discussed, it won't happen unless we collectively assume ownership and demonstrate accountability. And how do we do this? Well, let's dig into it here. And it's kind of fitting on this quote. Derek, do you mind going back? Thank you, that we talk about students graduating. That's one of our main goals here in our district. And we just had the privilege of watching that happen at both Fur Ridge campus and David Douglas High School. So we're seeing it happen, and we just want to continue to get better. So thanks, Derek. So let's get into how we will do that. The next slide, I won't read all of this because you have this, but one thing that we're proud of is intentionally involving families and students and community members to help hold us current and accountable. We're excited that we have our very own district racial equity lens that we can refer to. That's really, really cool for all of us. And so, Derek, do you mind going to the next slide? Thank you. So one of the things that we're trying to do is allocate our resources equitably, and always be thinking about that. And then also being able to assess how we do it. So it's one thing to allocate the resources, but then it's another thing to be accountable to that and assess the racial equity impacts of that. And are we supporting students in the way that they need to be supported? And so we're hoping that we have some systems built in that are going to help us with that. So Derek, the key performance indicators, I believe that's our final slide here. And one of the things that we were excited about, there's a few of them here, and one of them is that we want to stay organized, and we want to calendar out data that we have by student group. We've never really been that intentional, maybe not in that way about maybe if we're looking at attendance data or we're looking at youth truth data or discipline data. But this way, as you see in that first bullet, we can calendar that out so we can hold ourselves accountable to actually looking at the data and seeing the work that we're doing, is it making a difference or not? And then making adjustments from there. I talked about our district equity lens that is really exciting. We have our graduation report that we always, that's something that we've had, but we can continue to dig into it by student group. We do that now pretty well. But the last bullet there, I think, is really exciting. And one of our stakeholders on our team had talked about, what if we had a binder a binder of information that any family would have access to for support, for resources, so their child can be on the trajectory to graduation and a post-secondary career. Because as you know, the families that don't know, they don't know. And so how can we increase information out to all families so we can support all students in their path. And so one of our team members had seen this before and kind of inspired us to maybe try to create what we're calling the David Douglas Guide to Graduation and Beyond. And right now what we know is that it's in the form of a binder, but we look forward to continuing with that, so we can, probably in our secondary schools, we can be able to provide information to families and seek them out and say, hey, here's some information that you may not know about for your child. So that was, I think, at least for me personally, a highlight for our team. And our team, before I pass it back to Kel, and on accountability, was Anderson Dubois. Anderson's from REAP, one of our community partners, the one and only Donna Barber, Joanne Robinson Tillery from Floyd Light, and then Kelly Devlin. So Kel, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you, Andy. So the final commitment team was our workplace policies commitment team. I believe this consisted of a parent, Senora Adriana Govea Laraga, Aide Valerio Wajes, Candy Wallace, Mohammed Rahman, and Christine Larson, correct? I believe. And so the last commitment team focused on, what we've been talking about for a while. We've talked about this through our strategic hiring plan, but basically we are committed to increasing our diversity, our staff of color, so our district staff in its entirety represents our student population and our David Douglas community in accordance with state law. So next slide, Derek. So thank you. So some of the things that are already interconnected with our strategic hiring plan is, how do we develop a workforce that is racially diverse and culturally responsive in all of our employee groups? We really want to make sure that we are intentional about recruitment, employment, supporting, and then retaining. Those four things go hand in hand in making sure that, as Candy stated tonight earlier, that David Douglas is a place where people want to come and work at and want to grow as a professional. The other thing that we want to focus on is making sure that when we have our employee groups, all of our groups, that we need to be able to grow and thrive in our positions. We need to have professional development and learning, and we need to have the resources in order to continue to grow and be lifelong learners, no matter what position we're in. And let's see, I believe there's another slide after this. So it leads me to our KPIs and understanding that when we are doing the most important thing that we do, hiring, that we use that racial equity lens in all of the things that we're doing in supporting our employees. So one, we want to ensure that we take a look at that strategic hiring plan that we worked on several years ago, and how do we need to update it? How do we hold ourselves accountable to it? And is there anything that we need to revisit, modify, or adjust? The other thing is, we already have it on the docket. Candy does this for us annually in our annual staffing data and report, but we're also trying to cascade that down and really hone that in as a target to our individual buildings. We want our principals to be looking at their data in their schools. We shouldn't only have a large district lens. We should be looking at departments. We should be looking at our schools and how is that changing and how is that evolving. We are so grateful that we will have Director Spears next year in our diversity, equity, and inclusion platform. And, her main priority right now, which we have an amazing cohort that we are growing to become future teachers. And we, I would say, is at the forefront in our community in really establishing a solid grow your own program that is engaging our employees, but totally connecting to community partners and higher education around us. And that feels amazing. And then following that, as we have all learned in some of our professional learning, it is important for us to not just look at the numbers, but we need to do some empathy interviews. We need to lift up some voices, and we need to go deeper and understand what the numbers mean, but understand what where our people are coming from, and hear those voices. So those are the key areas around workforce policies under that commitment. And we thank that commitment team for all of the great conversations that they have had, knowing that kids and our community are at the center of their target. So the next slide, which I think is the last slide. Thank you. So again, just in closing, before we open it up to any questions from our school board, is, we really want to highlight that a lot of this work could not have been done without having students and all of those constituents or stakeholders communicating, engaging, having really hard, long conversations. I can speak for my team, Team 3. There were often times when we scheduled a virtual meeting and it went longer than the set time. I can speak for other teams where I know that even though I had structures and timeframes set up, they met more often, almost weekly sometimes, to work on their commitment areas. So that was one thing that we prided ourselves in, having thoughtful, constructive discussions about what we were thinking together. The other thing is we also came back as a larger team to check each other's work, ask questions, and we were able to do that in different platforms, whether it was virtually looking at each other on this, screens, or we were able to do it in a Google Doc form. And then the other thing that I just want to highlight is that we are really trying hard to build connections in all of the other established work. We did a lot of work with our strategic plan. Our main focus area in our strategic plan is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a racial equity policy that guides us. You tasked us with all of that. We have our staff of color affinity group who is working hard with their freedom dreams. It is directly connected to our work. We have our human resources department worked diligently on a strategic hiring plan. Our director of curriculum and instruction, Brooke, leads us in our work on our continuous improvement plan. And 2 other members of cabinet, well, a lot of leaders, but Derek and Andy lead us in our key performance indicators with regards to our roadmap to getting our kids on trajectory to graduating from David Douglas with a diploma. And if we continue to follow that roadmap, we can make such headway for all of the students that are a part of our community. So with that all being said, we want to leave it up. That is our presentation. You actually have a 19-page complete detailed equity plan that we bring to the board on behalf of your school board racial equity committee as a recommended. This is our district equity plan, 2021 to 2026.
Ellie, I see that Francesca has her hand up.
I do. This is unconventional because I'm on the team presenting and I know we're supposed to be seeking feedback. I am just wondering, Derek, if it's not too big of a problem, would you be able to put slide 4 up really quick? If not, that's okay.
Yes, just give me just a second.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Derek. I just one more slide down, I think. Thank you. So as I was presenting this, I've been on this work group now for several months, and we just always refer to it as student achievement. But as I was reading this, the whole commitment, and I was reading it out loud, all of a sudden I felt really uncomfortable while I was mid-sentence. And I realized that multiple times in here, the phrase lowest achieving students is used. And I feel like that is counterintuitive to almost everything else in this plan, because it doesn't use student first language. And it's assessing students against a pre-established expectation of what achieving means. And I feel like that is what we are trying to fight against in this work. And so I'm just going to put out there that I feel like before this is approved, I think it's important that we look at how we can make that a little bit more assets-based or strengths-based versus what it sounds like right now. So I'm sorry I know I'm probably over my 3 minutes. I've cashed in more than that, but I just feel like it's really important that we address that.
Absolutely. Kelly, did you want?
I would just say that we would follow board leadership's direction on how we would make that change, because what Francesca is referring to is directly taken out of our adopted and approved school board policy. So in order for us to change what would be in the plan, the language would need to then be also first changed in the adopted school board policy. And I think I'm on the right pathway with that.
I would love to ask if there are some board members, even maybe our new one, or Donna or any of the other folks who served on this committee would like to take that on, because I agree. It's something that bothered me when we first adopted it, but nobody really knew how to wordsmith it, right? And so I would love to bring that back to the board to adjust, to have it be more strengths-based and not have a presupposition of any child's potential. So I'm happy to work with whoever. I know I'm not on the committee, but I'm happy to work with anyone to help make that happen.
As a member of the policy committee, this is very common. That's why we review policies every year. So I think, of course, it'll be in the new fiscal year, but I don't see a problem with that being brought forth, and maybe the district with some input can work on how to tweak that language. Truthfully though, could we adopt, and this is more of a technical question, could we adopt this racial equity plan knowing that we have to tweak the language somewhat? You know, the rest of the plan is all solid. It's just tweaking the one language, you know, that one area of language in it, and fine tuning it a little better to be more reflective.
The answer is
But
yes.
Yeah, I would think that the policy is the thing that needs to go through the process of board, but the plan itself, I mean, there's lots of plans that get adopted or adapted just by, staff all the time. So
it's a living plan. It's going to be updated. And thank you, Francesca, for bringing that to our attention. I think very well said. Obviously, will drive some policy conversation and I believe change. Obviously, I can't say that until it's done, but we will definitely move forward with that. But yes, at the pleasure of the board, and then I would say the team input as well, there's ways to adopt this plan, and with the understanding that that will be updated, and that will be updated immediately. Maybe within 2 months. It's going to take a little time, but really that the idea is that section will be updated with student first language. I think is a commitment that we could follow through on very easily. I don't know.
Would you like to go? Oh.
Go ahead, Sahar. I'm sorry. I see a couple hands. I'll make some statements when the hands are done.
Aaron, would you like to go ahead? And then we have Frida as well.
Oh yeah, this is just a question I had about the presentation. The term empathy interview came up, and it sounds really intriguing. I'm just wondering what an empathy interview is I guess this is kind of like 101 for newbies to this, and how that affects the hiring process. I think that it was saying that we're going to use empathy interviewing in regards to hiring. If I was wasn't incorrect in hearing that, I'm just curious.
Anyone from our team would like to answer?
I'm happy to answer. Just in our work about improvement science and empathy interviews are really listening and allowing people to tell their story, and then taking that data. It's not asking like leading questions or pre-leading questions, but it might just be tell me about a time. So it's really letting them share their experience, their story, and then collecting all that data and coding that data and looking for themes that would then drive our improvement work. And so then we can start to implement short cycles of improvement to meet our long-term aim. So it's just a different way to get data, but it's really user-centered and people-centered. And anybody else can add to that explanation.
I just want to clarify too that in your question, Erin, it is distinct from the hiring process, right? It's a part of what we would do with our current task, our current workforce. And when we started, I want to say 5 years ago as a district with an equity team 50, that was one of the very first tasks we all took on, was conducting interviews with our peers and just listening to stories. So while those were all part of the presentation of the commitment that Kelly was covering, that isn't necessarily a part of hiring, while hiring was something else that Kelly covered as well.
Thank you for the clarification, John and Brooke. I really appreciate it. That makes sense. And yeah, thank you. Also, I thank you all for putting this together. This is incredible. I just wanted to say that while I was still talking. So I'm going to stop talking now. But wow, this is just blowing me away.
Frida, would you like to go?
Okay. First of all, I would also like to thank the committee for all the work they did. I mean, I was really impressed with it when I went through it, because it does have goals. It has key indicators, and it has steps and timelines and who's responsible, which I think is often lacking in a plan. And so it'll make it much easier to follow through with the plan. I've worked on a lot of city plans, so they usually get put on a shelf and never used. So I really appreciate that we're going to have something that is very usable and will move our district forward. I did have a couple of comments, more about multiple pathways. I can remember when I first got on the board and they had the legislature put in high stake testing, and one of my biggest arguments was that as a high school for graduation, we had to have multiple ways for kids to achieve, because not everybody was a good test takers. So I like seeing that still in the thought process on and evaluating students on their achievement, because some kids just do really well with showing one way how to do it, and others need a total different pathway, but they're just as smart and can achieve just as well. So I really appreciate seeing that. And then the graduation and beyond, you mentioned high school, and having one grandchild who's in high school and one in middle school. I think that needs to start in middle school, sharing that information with parents, especially we have parents who don't have that knowledge. It gives them plenty of years to plan. Plus, when their child starts high school, they can help direct them on the classes they need to take to achieve it. I remember my youngest son, no one thought they didn't even think he'd graduate, let alone go to college. But my focus was he was going to take what he needed to go to college. And when he became a senior, he could make that decision. And he did make the decision to go. So I think that helping parents so they know that, because not a lot of parents don't know that especially if they're the first student going to college, they need a lot more help and support in that way. So those children have just the same opportunities as the others. But just those comments. But thank you for putting this together.
Did I just see another hand go up?
I did pop my hand up really quick.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Francesca.
Just in response to what Frida had shared, we did talk in a lot about exactly what you're describing, Frida. And one of the things we talked about was, in addition to helping educate parents and families, also educating teachers on how some of the decisions that we make impact students as well. I know none of us would say we're a district that, tracks or put students on these tracks, but in some ways all K-12 education does that, because if you are in a certain math class by a certain grade, you're never going to get to calculus by 12th grade, or I don't know exactly what it is, but we talked about that in a lot of detail too, and how can we partner with the middle schools even, because even as a 5th grade teacher, there's been decisions that I've made that affect a student's trajectory, whether they're in an ELD placement or things like that. So that's definitely part of that conversation. So I just wanted to acknowledge that that's one of those areas that will need fleshing out, but definitely a conscious decision to have that in there.
Oh, Miss Kay Spears has arrived right on time as we are getting ready to adopt it. Did you, Miss Taylor, would you like to say something? Welcome. Nice to have you.
I want to say my sincere apologies. If you know me, you know I am a very timely person. So I am quite disappointed in myself right now. However, I would like to just speak to, and I'm sure that the team did an amazing job, but I had the opportunity to meet with all of these people who were on the team. And I can tell you this, they were so committed to the work. And I believe that this work that we have in front of us nicely aligns with next step initiatives within our district. And I was super excited about commitment number 2. I'm a little biased there because it is directly a reflection of the work that I have done day to day in the area of discipline. And I can say that I've looked at my own discipline data and I haven't been proud of myself. I can say that there are a lot of changes that need to be made, and I'm excited about the what. I'm excited about the why. I'm excited about the importance of how this impacts our students. So I'm sure I don't need to give you any more. I'm sure you guys are on board, or maybe I'm just saying that, I don't know, but I hope that you are on board with what we are thinking. And restorative practice is really the next best thing. It doesn't mean that we are lowering our expectations. However, we are teaching the expectation and helping our students get on board with where we are. So thank you again for hearing us out and taking the time and allowing us an opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. And yes, as everyone or many have said, this is phenomenal. This is great. If you are not able to see the chat, we've just been going on and on about how excited we are. It's so comprehensive. It's so strategic. There are so many details here. It's an actual plan. It's really great. I am very excited. This has been a really great school board meeting, y'all. A lot of great things happening. So thank you all so much for all this work. It truly is phenomenal. Y'all should be extremely proud of yourselves. And with that, and knowing that it is a living document and we can adjust that language that Francesca or Ms. Altman was able to bring up, who wants to bring a motion for us to go ahead and adopt our racial equity plan here? Would I be calling it the plan or the policy? Does that make a difference? Or
It's a plan.
okay, yes.
I'll move the racial equity policy.
Second.
Yay. Y'all ready? Okay. Maranovich, aye. Barrow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Before I vote aye, I just have to say that I put this in the chat, but when this all first started 4 years ago, we looked at so many racial equity policies and plans and what other districts have done. And I could not be prouder that this is our plan, because it really feels like Douglas. It feels like us. It feels like, you know, real. It's not just talk. I'm so excited to vote aye, and I'm so proud to be in this district.
Christopher,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Did I get everyone? Aaron, you want to, right? And with that, we have our racial equity plan adopted. Thank you all again so much. This is phenomenal work. We love to see it.
Sahar, if you don't mind, just a quick, I promise to be very brief, but I just want to weigh in and say my deepest gratitude as well to this team, to Francesca, John, Dina, Andy, Kelly, and Tay for all speaking to this, but the leadership, the heart, the passion, and there's others on the team. They just happen to be the one presenting. But thank you so much. I mean, you can see the dedication, you can see the leadership. And I'm not talking about a leadership about a position or a piece of paper. I'm talking about people that are passionate about this work and what's right for kids and ultimately moving our district forward, right? A district where all students, all community members are welcomed, feel safe, supported, are achieving, right? That they're known by their names, known by their strengths, known by their needs, and ultimately that they truly have an identity in the schools. And this is my school, this is my community, and this is the work that leads to that. And these individuals, I'm going to say, I'm going to toot the horn, if you will, I truly believe this is a shining star in the state, in our county, in our region. This work isn't happening everywhere, and it's because of the individuals on this call and many others that are on the committees and other just work groups at building levels that are joining book clubs and learning and having discussions, tough discussions, and moving our district forward. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I want to specifically, if you don't mind, just recognize our own Miss Kelly Devlin. She's been the heart of this work. I can't tell you how many times she's shown up in my office, kind of, we're going here and we're going there, and always with what's best for kids in mind. And again, her heart definitely drives us. So now I'm going to be that. Sahar, I know you're right. It's been a very positive and will continue to be positive because this is positive, but I'm going to echo a little bit about what Francesca says and really recognize that, you know, on one hand, amazing, right? On the other hand, we should all, and I can tell you as a superintendent of this district, should be somewhat ashamed that we have to have an equity policy, right? Those disproportionate realities are realities. I don't want to hide that. We do have disproportionality in our district. And until we are in a place where we cannot predict the outcome of our students based on a number of factors, including zip code, including perceived ability, including the color of the skin, including gender, until we get there, then we have equity work. So ultimately, this will guide us. It so aligns with our strategic plan. I'm so excited about it, but let's not lose sight that the work, this is just not the beginning because we've been doing it, but it's truly a launch for us to drive together as a team. And again, all I can really say is thank you. Thank you for all of your work and passion, and let's go. Let's keep it going. This is the right work. So thank you all.
Indeed. This is great. And with that, we're going to move on to more exciting things, namely planning process for possibly the May 2022 bond. And I'm going to pass it on to Pat.
Good evening. So last month, we had a board workshop discussing potentially going out for a bond this November. We did have a presenter who kind of showed us a timeline, and there was discussion about moving that towards next May rather than this coming November. And so I just wanted to kind of give some highlights. You had a memo sent to you regarding some timelines and steps about making committees and getting the political action committee going. assembling a bond advisory committee. You did already have some preliminary analysis on tax impacts at different levels from Piper Sandler. We will need to go out for an RFP for a consultant to help us with preparations and communications and marketing. And so we talked also about preparing and sending out some information on what a general obligation bond is and why there's a need for a bond. And we're trying to get that list finalized. And so I think tonight we'd like to know if the board approves us moving forward with activities to prepare to place a measure on the May 22 ballot for a general obligation levy.
The intent also is a conversation. You see that this is divided into two sections, and the section right now is really a conversation. What did we hear at the board workshop? What follow-up questions do you have? Obviously, Pat did a great job of summarizing. We wanted to give you in your board packet too, there's some notes that kind of shows where we've been. It shows that ultimately we moved forward with a bond in November, what action was taken, and now we're kind of transitioning here. And then hopefully after we end that discussion, or when we're ready to transition, we're going to ask for consideration for the board to give some direction on moving forward with that May bond. As Pat said, right now is more the discussion piece and kind of the nod and the understanding that we are going to be looking at that consultant going out, reaching out to our community, really publishing that timeline, those key roles. And again, we just wanted to discuss that a bit. And others, I see that Frida has her hand up.
Mainly comments from our workshop, especially. It seemed like after listening to the consultant, the first thing even to move forward is we need to establish a bond committee, and I believe that'd be a superintendent's committee and not a board committee, if I understand which ones are which. I think this will be helpful because I see a bond committee because it will include some board members that the new chair would assign, but they could be looking at the facility plans, because technically the way he spoke is that committee would help recommend what we should have in the bond. And so they'd have to look at all the data that we've compiled with facility plans, et cetera, to do that. So, and then the other thing is, I like the way that now compared to the last bond, there's a shift where the district's more involved with education and marketing, and the burden isn't all on the PAC. And so I think we also would need to get give you the nod to hire a consultant to help do with that. That's just my comments.
Yeah, well, Frida, I agree with that. I do believe that's what I heard too, is a bond committee. And I agree. I mean, it could go either way. If the board would rather have it be a board committee, they're really the same thing. The difference obviously is official board committee, there's minutes, notes, etc. Not that we don't keep minutes and notes, it's just a little more informal when it's a superintendent's committee. But that's the plan. That's what we're looking at. You mentioned it. Our intentions is with the next board chair and the board assignments to ask our board chair to reach out to our board and assign those board members for those roles, be thinking about those roles. We also are, again, very interested in getting a consultant on board earlier than later to help with that, even with that bond committee, right? Help with all of it, to just that expertise and knowledge to guide through that timeline, or a timeline. It doesn't have to be Jeremy's, and he might not be the consultant that we're looking at, but ultimately getting a consultant and someone that has expertise to help us. We're looking at doing that within the next month as we bring on a new chair, as we bring on new board leadership, as we assign and move forward. And Stephanie, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Jeremy. I think he was really helpful in getting us to think through this. I'd love to know, like, I know that we could take some of this money out of our board like pile, but I really think we need to move on it now. So, because if we don't get someone that can sort of staff helps, support this work, we're going to be here again in another few months going, oh, we're not ready. So let's just allocate the funds and do it. And I'm happy to, I actually had a switch in job. I'm no longer working nationally. I'm now in Oregon, so I don't have to travel, even that the world is opening up, and I'm happy to help. I'd love to help on fundraising, and, engaging the community.
But when it comes to that, that would be the PAC, would be the fundraising arm to help pay for.
Yeah. Okay. We won't talk about that now because it's a separate entity, but I can talk to the community and educate people. So that I would do here.
Regarding the committee, other than board members, I'm just curious of which other stakeholders who all could or should be part of the committee, other than board members.
Yeah, so I think district administration, district staff, community members, community-based organization, leadership would be invited to the table, students. So, when we look at our equity teams, our equity committees, and who we invited and that representation, parents, guardians, I think it's a broad swath is what we're talking about, and reaching out with an invite to have as many voices as we can. Obviously a committee, I mean, you guys all know and have expertise in this, can get too big to manage, but you can have committees with work groups. So there's a number of ways that we can do it. And ultimately, I think the more diverse voices we can get and representation we can get across our community is going to help us in the long run with any of our initiatives, but specifically with our bond. So we were thinking about starting, we've had conversations about it already, our long range facility plan, our facilities plan in general. We had planning teams for both of those where we have individuals that were passionate about that work, where there could be some invites. We obviously have key stakeholders already from a number of different representative groups that we could reach out to ask them if they're interested in serving as well. So there's that part, we could reach out very quickly and kind of form. Obviously, it's time, it's energy. Some are going to say yes, some are not going to be in a place they can accept, but we keep asking and we keep reaching out. There's also ways to activate and think about as we have a committee, a committee at the district level. We can also have subcommittees at the site levels, thinking about, parent groups at school levels and presentations from our administrators and others. And, this is getting down the road a little bit. But again, I think the more individuals we have helping to communicate the vision and the need, the better off we are going to be and the more success we will have.
I had another question in regards to communicating with families and the community. Do we have any type of communication plan in place yet to provide just like that awareness campaign? I know it's something that Donna, you've brought up a few times, but just getting just more general information out there of this is something that is coming up next year. We want to let you know this is how it works, this is why we do it, this is how we get XYZ funding and voting, etc. Get that out there in all the different languages just to inform the community so they are aware. And then when the campaign and really like the campaign starts, it's not the first time they're hearing about this bond.
Yes, we do not. I mean, we have a communication template, I could say, you know, that we use for a number of different factors, you know, from our social media platforms, and kind of how, but at this point, we don't have a communication, have a communication plan that's inked. You know, the one thing that we heard loud and clear is a start with what is a bond, right? Just an education of what it is before we even get in too deep, you know, right? And I think Donna obviously has been one champion of that. It doesn't do a lot of good to poll, you know, if you're polling something that people don't even really understand what it is. So starting with that communication piece around that, and then moving forward from there around getting down into specifics. Again, backing up a little bit, capacity wise, our intention is to move very swiftly and fast to get a consultant on board to help us with that. Really, we need help. One, capacity right now with everything that's going on, I'll fall on the sword a little bit. We need some help, and I'm seeing nods. I don't see any resistance from the board, but we just wanted to really have this conversation with you to make sure we're going in the right direction, and we want to go out for an RFP and make sure we do an invite to see who's interested and who's got expertise there to get someone on board to help us with that communication plan, Sahar, and, you know, kick this off right.
Can I just say, I think that, yes, that that's important in light of talking about even putting together these committees. If you truly want to have parents and students involved, then they need to know what it is you're inviting them to be involved with. So even before you form committees, or at the same time that even if it's a one pager that just gives, you know, these main points of what it is this is and what we are in need of in terms of like what committee work would involve, so that people can make those informed decisions. Because otherwise you're going to end up with the people who always would do it and leave out a lot of key people. We are going to end up with, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Donna. I agree. And typically we don't start, and we will, but we have a little bit of a buffer, and not that we have, you know, we have to move fast, but we typically do not start committees in the summer. We don't see the same type of interest. So I think really next month is with the consultant one, and then really the board, the key role of board members and what teams are different board members going to sit on. So we have that leadership framework developed. And then from there, you know, just like what you said, Donna, that communication, what are we asking? Why are we asking? What is it? What does it mean? And, you know, forming really August, hitting it mid-August, into August, September, getting those individuals that are back into our schools where we have a little better access to them, that reach and that ask and that connection.
Great, that sounds good to me.
Any other questions, comments, more discussion? And just as a reminder, the action item to approval, this comes next, but just wanted to see if other folks had anything else to add. Great. Thank you all so much. And with that, we are going to go ahead to approve to move forward with a May 2022 bond. This is an action item. We just heard about it. So who would like to bring the motion to go ahead with that bond in May 2022?
I will. I move that we move forward with the May 2022 bond.
I'll second it.
Great, thank you. And with that, Stevens.
Aye.
Maranovich, aye. Christopher.
Aye.
Barrow.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
And Larson.
Aye.
We have ourselves a bond date, folks, May 2022. Thank you all for your work on this. It's going to be exciting as we start campaigning for it. Thank you again, Pat. All right, and with that, I don't know if we have other committee updates. I know we heard from Racial Equity Committee, just Finished up bargaining. I don't think we have anything else there. Nope.
I don't believe so, no.
Great.
Can I just make a comment? And this is off the track, but at least before Ken gets in the report, the district's been working on getting vaccination clinics going. And we're keeping the website up to date on all those vaccination clinics in the area for our community, because we have one of the lowest percentage of vaccination rates. You know, if everyone can, when someone's asking or the discussion gets up, steer them toward our website so they can get the latest up-to-date stuff, because they're going to be going on all summer. So the more kiddos and families we can get vaccinated, the better. So just a heads up for everyone.
Thank you, Frida. Yes, indeed. And with that, Ken, it's time for the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you so much, Sahar, and everyone else. And I can check that off my list, Frida, as far as vaccinations. Very proud of the work that Mary's been leading in the partnership, and obviously all your support to make that happen, Frida. I can't remember. I think the first one we had north of 2,000 individuals that got vaccinated in a clinic that we helped host. So, you know, the reality is one more is one more, 10 more is 10 more, 200 more is 200 more. So we're continuing to partner and host and provide opportunities for our students and families, and it seems to be a benefit. So look forward to those continued partnerships as we move forward. A couple other just quick updates. I'll be fairly brief tonight, but number one, just wanted to give you all an update on our online academy. Again, I'm very excited about the work and another opportunity for our students and families. We have somewhere north of about 340 families that have shown interest in the online academy. Again, reminder, we're running a K-12 program. The elementary, we're looking at a K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8 kind of blended, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 will be based on needs. So again, so far it's tracking. Really excited. ESSER's helping us fund this. It's our ESSER funding, so it's helping us launch this program, and I see it only continuing to grow as we move forward. Linda Vansel is the director of our David Douglas Online Academy, and she's just been doing exceptional work to communicate, reach out, and recruit. So looking forward to reporting more on that as it continues. I want to transition here and talk a little bit about summer school, and I want to ask Brooke O'Neill to share a bit, because her leadership has been essential in this work, and I know she has a lot to share. Just kind of update where we're at and our next steps.
Yeah, I'm excited to share, because since it's been such a good board meeting with really good news, I think summer school fits right along with that. We have been working so hard. We haven't had K-8 summer school in like 13 years in David Douglas. So this is such a great opportunity for us. And, you know, we started, you know, with nothing, but I think we have a really solid program thanks to this team. Like everybody, it's so cool to see the district rally together and so many people come together to offer this experience for our students. So for elementary right now, we have 905 students registered, and we're going to have summer programming at 8 sites. And then for middle school, we have 266 registered, and that's going to be at 2 sites. My team's been working really hard on writing lesson plans, daily lesson plans for teachers. That is just really our goals, is for students to come and connect and have fun. You know, maybe a little bit of research on the computer, depending on the unit, but other than that, be off the computer and just enjoy school, very hands-on. You know, we talked about some of the different units, from designing the ideal restaurant, you know, the ultimate playgrounds. So a lot of project-based learning pieces. And then in middle school, it's going to be a theme about how do we better our community, and ultimately it will end with building tiny homes, you know, a project that builds tiny homes. And then in the afternoon, there's more just recreation and play. So we have a partnership with Playworks, which is just structured play, and they're fantastic partners with us, just to get kids outside gamified and engaging in games. I didn't realize how many different levels of Foursquare there is, but where students can enter based on if they want to be in a competitive league or versus just, I just want to learn, but differentiating Foursquare for students and a myriad of other games, getting kids to play Frisbee and all those fun games that, you know, we probably haven't done very much anymore. For middle school, I'm super excited that our middle school students will get a 2-day trip to outdoor school. So students and that will be all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So they will have a 2-day experience to, because a lot of our 7th and 8th graders miss that completely. So 5th graders will have 5 swimming lessons included in their experience. And our team, all of us, have just been scoring requests for proposals from other organizations, you know, that we also want to bring in. So we got proposals from like REAP and the Oregon Ballet Theater and Hands to Mouth Theater, the Circus Project, lots of Zenger Farms, Grow Portland. So we've been scoring those proposals, and we want to weave in those organizations as much. And I know Pat thought she was done with costing things out for bargaining, but she's doing a lot of it now for summer school. So anyway, I think it's just super exciting to see our kids signing up. We have a fantastic team of summer school principals that we've been able to hire that are aspiring administrators, and they are just working so hard to get staffing in place and all the protocols in place. And so it's exciting. So Frida, I think I see your hand raised.
Yes, because you mentioned middle school, and this person has been having very difficulty finding any information about middle school summer school program. I mean, they tell me to go to Sun School for afternoon programs, can't find anything on the internet. I mean, I think that might be why your enrollment's pretty low, because all it has is a sign-up sheet. And I'll give you an example. My granddaughter doesn't need academics. She got all A's and B's, but we'd love to have her in some of the afternoon programs. And now that you mentioned 2 days of outdoor school, she was so disappointed not being able to go to outdoor school. So how do these kids who don't need the full-blown summer school can take advantage of 2 days of outdoor school or some of the afternoon? You know, I didn't want to sign her up for summer school because why take up academic slots when she doesn't need an academics?
Yeah, and that is tied, Frida, to the summer school programming. And the reason it's not like on the website is because it was very intentional outreach to students, particularly who did not have success in CDL. So remember when we were going to do limited in-person instruction like Lippy, we really started there, you know, people, maybe students and families that just didn't have a good experience and you know, missed a lot of school this year. And so that's where we started, and we're still by COVID guidelines. So we're moving from 6 feet to 3 feet guidance. So so we're just not in a position where we can just open to everybody. I wish we could, hopefully next year, if we get to do this again. And also we're also bound by our staffing numbers, you know, by how much staff we have and how we can do that. So right now, like some of those experiences are for students enrolled in summer school, but we will have Sun programming too. You know, and I don't know if Kel, if you want to say, or Mary, you want to say anything about that as well, because some of our Sun managers are doing things for students.
But what you're saying is the 6th graders who missed outdoor school cannot take advantage of the 2 days that are going to be done this summer unless they have an academic problem.
Unless they're enrolled in the summer program.
Right,
Yeah.
which would be, she'd be taking a slot someone else really needs, you know, just to get 2 days of summer school. It's just some flaws in it I see for the rest of the kids. And the fact that there is nothing online for the Sun School program or anything that I could find. And I was hunting today for all over the place to try and see if there was another avenue to sign up other than through the one Sun School. So I mean through the one site in Alisat. So it's just some issues I kind of see.
And it doesn't mean there might not be other programs through like the ESD or whatnot. It just wouldn't be tied to that summer school program. I see Kelly nodding. I think so.
Well, if it is, the information's not getting out. That's what I'm trying to get at, you know? And so my son hasn't heard anything about it. So the information isn't getting out at the middle school level, you know? So it might be some, because there's still a little time. It doesn't come till July to get more information out that way.
Regarding just a little bit about Sun as well. So there, as Brooke mentioned, some of the hurdles that we have had to overcome with our academic summer learning programming planning. Sun is the same as well as our community providers. They are trying to adhere to health and safety guidelines, staffing implications, and pulling and bringing programming back that was actually on pause for the last 14 months. And so we're still on the road of planning and trying to rebuild those bridges and connections back to what I would say was pre-COVID. Still working on communicating via Sun. So they're still also trying to bring back staff that they didn't have. So some of the things that you mentioned, we have been meeting with Sun on a weekly basis, and we're trying to do the best that we can, and we'll check back with our middle school teams regarding communication.
And Aaron, I see your hand is raised too.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke. I mean, this all sounds really, really great. The ability to get outside and play and just get around other students and go swimming and do this really fun stuff sounds awesome. I'm just curious, because when we brought up summer school earlier in the year, a lot of what we talked about was getting the ability to help kids who are struggling academically kind of catch up a bit, or who really struggle with distance learning. And so how would this, if I enrolled my son per se in summer school and he really struggles in math, I mean, he really does struggle in math, how is summer school going to help him catch up in math so he's not hurting so much next year? I'm just
and it's great question. It's not a remediation type summer school. So it really was, the focus was to bring kids in, and we have aligned it to standards. So when they're doing the project-based learning pieces, there's reading standards, there's math standards, there's other components, but it's not about doing remediation for students. It's really about kind of reacclimating to school, coming in and having fun and connecting with kids, and almost so that you don't know you're learning, but it's, that's the intent behind it. But it is tied to standards. But if they're struggling in like multiplication facts and things, we've built in some games and things like that. But it's not like a drill and type summer school or an intervention type piece. So yeah. Stephanie?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really impressed that y'all pulled this together so quickly. I know people were waiting, like, when's it going to start? What are the dates? But like, I can't imagine the back end of this. And I will say, we just passed an equity plan, right? I mean, we spent a lot of time looking through it, and this is what differentiating equity-focused resource allocation looks like. It means that you are focusing on those families that have social emotional issues, or that are struggling maybe academically because of what was going on at home or some other reason. And I feel like in what I saw happening with the recruitment was really like targeted and teacher specific, even like looking at trying to talk to those families. It wasn't just an open call, hey, we have a summer fun activity thing. It was really trying to provide something for the kids who need it most and who are struggling the most this year. So I would just say good job on that. And it sometimes is going to feel uncomfortable, right? It's sometimes going to feel like some kids are getting something and others aren't. But that's what equity is. So I think you're doing a bang up, smash up job on it. And I'm really excited.
Thank you. And hopefully we can, when we're not under COVID guidance, we can do more, and expand it more. But being our first year that we have done something in so long, it's kind of getting it rolling and getting it started. But Frida, I think getting to your point too, I think something maybe we can do is look at what else is out there in the community, what else is being offered, and try and work with Dan maybe to post some other summer opportunities for students that are not in the district summer school. Because it shouldn't be so hard for you to have to hunt and find different opportunities.
And the funny part is I'm really good at researching it. So
I know.
So you take someone else out and who isn't good at the internet and trying to find it. It was frustrating to find so little. Even the parks was bad. And usually they're pretty good.
And I know for us, a lot of it has come down to staffing. People are tired, and I just want to give a shout out to all the teachers and instructional assistants and our bus drivers and our cooks that are helping us pull this off. But we people are tired. We had a lot of people like, I just need a summer and to decompress. And so and
the reason I'm pushing it so much is kids may not need it academically, but that's social, emotional. Especially my granddaughter is an only child. Those children didn't have a lot of interaction. And so that's why I was looking to see, was there something in the afternoon that could get her out of the house, get with the kids, get more comfortable at Alice Ott, but not taken away from the kids who need the academics and stuff.
Yeah, no, but I appreciate the feedback. That's really good feedback. And I think we can work with Dan to see so that we can do that research so that you don't have to.
Thank you, Brooke. And obviously one piece there and trying to keep this fairly tight. We still have one other business, but I'm definitely hearing some follow-up work. But I do want to thank Brooke and her team. Amazing work. And when you look at these lesson plans and look at some of the pieces they've put together, there is a lot there. And I think it's going to be a great experience. And unfortunately, we can't offer it to every student, but it is a great experience for those students that have been targeted based on limited in-person instruction and thinking about some of those criteria and needs. So thank you, Brooke. Thank you, team. And just looking forward to growing it and expanding it as well. Which brings me, Brooke brought up tired. And I just want to recognize that today is our last day with teachers, June 18th. This is our last day of the year. And I want to publicly thank all of our educators and instructors for showing up and being there and taking an active role to educate our students. They do it always, but obviously during this year it was different, and our team of educators and school staff each and every day, like I said, showed up and led and listened and learned and cared for students, and it just made such a tremendous difference. And although it's our teachers' last day, and some of our classified who are more classroom based, we have many other classified that was brought up earlier that, the very first weekend that we were closed and knew about this, they were out feeding students and delivering and transportation and cleaning buildings and trying to get them back safe. So it really has been a tremendous lift, district-wide, statewide, nationwide, worldwide. But I can speak for David Douglas, and I can't be more proud of our staff and our community and what they did each and every day this year. And I know we'll do next fall as well. And I just want to wish them a happy, healthy summer. We have some that are definitely going to come back and be busy this summer helping us with our students, but others that hopefully are going to be with their own families and focused on self-care and health and coming back recharged. So just a thank you and a reach out to all of them as we recognize this year in transition. A couple other pieces we just kicked off. We're doing a virtual. You think about synchronous and asynchronous and some of these words that we might not have known a year ago, we know now. We're actually doing an asynchronous virtual admin academy. And the reason for that is self-care, allowing our admin, rather than coming back for 3 or 4 days of an academy, we built a virtual academy and just some focus there. We've talked about all of it tonight, but just laying the groundwork, planting the seed and thinking about our work, ready school safe learner, a lot of focus there. How are we going to open? What does that look like? What do we still need to know? Thinking of our strategic plan, really dialing it up with our administrative team. So when we welcome back our entire staff next fall, we're ready to dial it up with them. Our freedom dreams have been mentioned. Our equity plan, obviously tremendous focus tonight. Our equity teams, our key performance indicators, all our work that our administrative team is going to be engaged in this summer and really kicking off next fall with. And then another piece we haven't really talked about a lot yet, but we will be, is the tribal history process and how we're integrating that into our schools and bringing that forward. And it's very exciting work as well. We'll be spending on this summer. So, and then transitioning, just want to recognize many of you were involved, you were there, but 2 beautiful graduations where we saw amazing young leaders walking and graduating and getting those diplomas, and truly moving. I mean, when you see those smiles, you see that energy, that excitement, you can't help but be moved. Both the high school, which was a drive-through this year, which, you know, was fun, the upbeat, the tempo, everything about it was exciting. And then our Furridge, who put together an in-person, and if you don't know, they were trying for an outdoor, and we had that last day of rain, so we ended up moving it to the North Gym. But I know for the board members that were there, you couldn't help but be moved as those graduates walked in and had a seat and ultimately walked across that stage and earned their diploma. So want to thank the entire teams for putting that together and all the work from K all the way through to help those students cross that stage and transition into the next part of their lives. And again, want to wish all of our graduates nothing but success and happiness, and you know, look forward to watching all of their success as they move forward. And then the last thing, if you'll indulge me, I in this superintendent's report, is we do have a board member that is with us, that this is her last board meeting. So I want to specifically thank Christine Larson, thumbs up, yes, for her 8 years of service. There is a plaque here. It doesn't quite have the same kind of effect. If we were in person, I could give you a hug, Christine, if that's allowable. I don't know, but virtual hugs. Thank you so much. And what this plaque says is the board of directors joins students, staff, and patrons of David Douglas School District in expressing our gratitude to Christine Larson for 8 years of outstanding service to the community as a member of the David Douglas School Board. Christine, I just want to personally thank you for your service, for your willingness, all of the conversations, all of the leadership, the directions, your thoughtful input as we've gone through many different decisions. I've had the privilege of working with you, and all I can, the simple, I know they're simple words, but very heartfelt, is thank you, Christine. I really appreciate all you've done. And I know I tried to talk you into another term, and I know you have better, you're moving, you got a future here outside the board, but I look forward to maybe your support and bond work, other work, and we'll see how we can keep you connected to the district. So thank you so much, Christine.
Thanks, Ken. I do want to say I am staying on the David Douglas Education Board, so I will be around. And Frida's told me that I'm helping with the bond, so there's that. I want to thank all of my board colleagues and the district staff, the staff, the main office, and all of the folks that work in our district. It's been really a pleasure to work with everybody. And I'm really thankful for that. I think you hear about other boards where board members snipe at each other during board meetings and all sorts of other shenanigans happen. And that's not our board. So it's been really a pleasure. One thing I did want to say is that I have been on the board for 8 years, and long before I started on the board, the state of Oregon developed the quality education model. And that is if you don't know about it, you can Google it. But if you Google it, you will find out that the state routinely short funds us about $2 billion every year. So, if anybody has any influence with the governor or anybody else and I'm looking at Stephanie since Andre is gone tonight, it really is important. If the state says the quality education model is to get quality education for our kids, you need these things. And then for 20 years hasn't funded that thing. That's not good. So that's kind of my parting comment. But like I said, I'm staying with the Education Foundation, so I'll still be around. I wish everybody well, and I'll keep watching things in the district. Thanks.
I think we can unmute for a moment just to give a nice cheer to Christine. Woo, thank you so much. Ken, did you have anything else in your report?
That's the end of my report. Thank you, Sahar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. I personally have learned a lot from you. Thank you for your expertise, the input you've provided. It's been really great and tremendous. Really appreciate you. All the best. And I'm really glad that we get to still keep you around with bonds and other such things. And finally here, to close out, we have one final approval of contracts under requests for proposals. You got an email of other business regarding this. So if there's anybody that wants to go ahead to approve this, or if there's any discussion that wants to be had.
Move approval of said contracts.
Thank you, Stevens. I will second here the approval of contracts. And with that, Barrow.
Aye.
Maranovich, aye. Christopher.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Great. Thank you all so much. And that has been approved. This was a tremendously positive meeting. We have a new board member. Thank you so much, Christine, for your service. We have a departing board member. We got 2 bargaining contracts ratified. We got our Pride proclamation, and we had a phenomenal presentation from our Racial Equity Committee. So this just left me with a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings. Thank you all so much for all your tremendous work. Again, congratulations to all of our graduates. It was amazing seeing you all graduate. Thank you all again, everyone, for this past year of having such a different school year, but you all did an amazing job. And with that, we're going to close out our meeting here at 9:14. Thank you all. Have a great night. Take care. Stay cool and hydrated.